Why did a gentle, nice, sweet lady contract to kill her husband?
Tonight on 48 Hours.
It was either me or him.
If she's in danger, then she has the right to defend herself.
I chased her across the street.
Alan took the gun barrel once this way, and then this way.
He said, "I'm sorry, that'll never happen again. I love you so much."
A vicious cycle of violence and fear.
I hollered at him to leave her alone.
And he grabbed me by the throat.
And for some, just one way out.
And then I fired the gun.
Now they're asking for mercy.
When a battered woman kills,
Click.
she says, "I've had it, you can't beat me anymore."
But when is the right to kill a license to kill?
Was there ever what we call beating?
Not to where he'd actually take his fist and beat me, no.
I went, oh my God, and I got up like that. I took a step and she shot me in the back.
48 Hours. Till death do us part.
Who do you blame for what's happened?
Both of us.
Good evening and welcome to 48 Hours. We'll have a Persian Gulf update right at the end of this broadcast. But tonight we're going to focus on a different kind of battle here at home. Every year, about 800 women in this country murder their husbands or boyfriends. Many of them say it was justifiable homicide. And now, in a growing number of states, courts are allowing defense lawyers to cite the so-called battered woman syndrome, a feeling of fear and helplessness that, in a few extreme cases, leads to murder. Ohio is the latest state to allow this controversial defense into court and has gone one step further, actually reopening old cases and granting clemency to some women, convicted killers, who say they had no choice.
Wake up.
It's morning at Ohio's maximum security prison for women.
5:30, wake up.
This is the way Janet Abbott has begun every day for the past 10 years.
I'm charged with aggravated murder. I hired someone to kill my husband. I couldn't do it. I never held a gun in my life.
It was at 10 o'clock in the evening. I was the first one on the scene. Mr. Abbott was laying in bed. I saw a hole in the back of his head with a very small amount of blood.
When I think about it, yeah, it was really cold-blooded. At that time, to get it over with was the most important thing.
It's just premeditated murder.
In August 1981, Janet Abbott was found guilty of hiring someone to kill her husband and sentenced to prison for life.
Do you think you should have gone to prison?
Not for life.
Why not? You took a life.
But I saved lives, too. I saved 4 kids' lives.
Mom wore dark glasses a lot. You can tell she's got a black eye there.
The black eye's here. She had a bruise over there, and this is a black eye at a different time.
Janet's 4 sons, Rick, Tim, Jamie, and Steve.
My dad was a big man. He was a mean man. It was scary.
What's the worst thing you remember?
The worst thing I can remember is my dad had my mother down on the floor, the back of her head, banging her head on the floor. And I went over and tried to push him off, and I was only about 12 years old at the time. He grabbed me and started banging my head off the wall.
Mom got a lot of beatings for us because he would start on us and she would stand up for us and he would just take off on her.
Things like this, they didn't happen just once or twice or 3 times. It went on and on and on. That was our normal life.
Dad was good, he would pick anything he could grab to hit you with or throw at you. I mean, I had hammers and screwdrivers, a blackjack that he had bought, 2x4s.
People just don't know. I'm sure they never went through hell and beatings like we did.
That was our life. That was our life. to live in fear.
What do you think would have happened if your mother had not had your father killed?
One of us wouldn't be standing here today.
You
That's
really
how I
believe
feel. Yes. He would kill one of us.
The jury heard none of that because 10 years ago when Janet was on trial, Ohio justice was blind to the battered woman.
I was prevented from introducing evidence of the beatings and so forth from the 4 people that were very close to the case, the 4 kids.
The law didn't allow Janet's attorney, David Green, to show what could lead a battered woman to kill her husband.
I was also prevented from introducing evidence that reflected 4 back operations, broken ribs, a number of other beatings that were in the form of hospital records. I couldn't answer the magic question that every single jury wants to know. Why did a gentle, nice, sweet lady contract to kill her husband?
The law has changed here in Ohio. The courts may now consider evidence of abuse in battered women's cases. And during our 48 hours, outgoing Governor Richard Celeste was looking at over 100 old cases. The idea to reduce the prison sentences of some of these women, or even to set them free.
Had they been given the right to defend themselves with the facts, brutal, shocking facts about their life experience, they almost certainly would have not been convicted or would have been charged and convicted of much lesser crimes.
That's what Janet Abbott claims. And so do 1/4 of all women currently serving time for violent crimes in Ohio's prisons.
There will be some women who have their sentences commuted. There will be a number of women who do not.
What Mom did it was legally wrong, but why she did it was never taken into account. The misery that we put in, the hell that we lived, wasn't even considered.
When I think of her in prison, I don't think of her as a murderer. She didn't see any other way out. She was protecting her kids, protecting herself.
But is battering alone an excuse for killing? Or a reason now for releasing Janet Abbott from prison?
I believe that Janet Abbott was an abused, battered wife, and I believe that she was also the mother of abused children.
Mike Moser was the prosecutor in Janet's trial.
The battered wife syndrome isn't just a battered wife. What that means is that she is suffering from some type of, like an anxiety attack, if you will, in which all of the past aggressions well up inside of her, so that at the moment that she commits the lethal act, she has had this syndrome, in a sense, take over her good judgment and reason, and she pulls the trigger.
How do you know that didn't happen to Janet Abbott?
Because she didn't pull the trigger. She pulled out the pen and wrote a check, and that is much different than pulling the trigger.
The reason that many of these women don't carry out the act themselves is because of fear. It's because of desperation. It's because of hopelessness. It's because they have no place else to go. I don't think Janet Abbott should have been acquitted in this instance. But I do think that Janet Abbott should have been found guilty of the lesser offense of voluntary manslaughter. That is a killing under great emotional stress. In all probability, she would have been out in maybe 3 years max.
10 years is a lot. I don't know. I mean, I know I took a life, and that life's never coming back. But I think I've suffered enough for it. I just think that he would want me out with the kids. I mean, I hope that he would.
I'm getting old, that's my worry, when I get out before I'm too old to, enjoy life.
So I can see if it comes out where they don't let her out, I don't know how to react. It's hard.
You really want
It's just hard. Yes. More ways than words can say it.
He's just got his hopes up so high. Now it's getting close, and it's kind of scary. What if the answer's going to be no? And you try not to get your hopes up.
Count time, ladies.
Good night. Good night, Mary.
That's what I pray about now. just God made me be strong enough to handle a no.
Later this hour, we'll find out whether Janet Abbott is freed or will remain behind bars.
"48 Hours, sponsored by Nissan, built for the human race.
Nissan started a few years ago with cold-rolled steel and a hot idea to build the best. First came the twin-turbo Z, and it was judged the best. Then the Maxima, and it was called the best as well. Now come the new Nissan Sentras, and they're called the best. In fact, in the last 2 years, Nissan's new lineup has won more major awards than anyone, 17 in all. Nissan. We started out making cars. We ended up making history.
To protect the lives of firefighters, DuPont developed a remarkable fire-resistant fiber for their clothing called Nomex. But perhaps even more remarkable is how it protects those who never even wear it. At DuPont, we make the things that make a difference.
Amber, are you saving any for your lasagna? I always lied about him beating me.
Lori has been married to her husband David for 10 years.
When he first started, it was always in the face. But it got to the point where I couldn't hide that any longer. So he would get better at it, and he would not leave a bruise where somebody could see it.
They live in a rural area of Ohio
David, that's what a glass is for.
with their 2 children.
And he'd pull my hair. He's throwing plates at me. I ended up in the hospital with 52 stitches in the back of my head. The next day, he was always so sorry. He'd say, "I'm sorry, that'll never happen again. I love you so much. I would never hurt you." And it's like Halloween. He wanted to dress up in costumes as prisoners. I said, "I'll tell you what." I said, "You go as my warden and I'll go as the prisoner."
Is that how you looked at him?
That's how I looked at my life.
Most people watching this broadcast would ask this question again and again. Why didn't Lori leave?
I'm not addicted to drugs or alcohol. Call my addiction my husband.
What? This?
If it wasn't for my children, I'd probably still be in this situation.
Yeah.
I never knew just how much it had affected my children until my daughter's teacher called and said she threatened her own life.
What did she do?
She put scissors to her throat and told her teacher that she'd rather be dead than see her mom hit again.
And what thoughts went through your mind?
I knew that I had to get out because my children are not going to be part of this cycle. They will not be part of the cycle of violence. My son said he'd go to court and testify for me.
After her daughter's suicide threat, Lori left home with the children and went to Crossroads,
He said, "Mom, you know I'll do whatever it takes." He said, "Because I'm tired of seeing people hurt you."
a shelter for battered women.
He said, "Doesn't it feel good to come home and know we don't have to go directly to our room?" And I said, "Yeah." You're going to be okay, Lori.
Today, with the support of shelter employee Becky Bellamy,
This is just the hard part, going through with everything that you decided on.
Lori is going to court to try to get a civil protection order.
I'm having an anxiety attack right now, guys.
Take some deep breaths.
A piece of paper ordering her husband to stay away.
Can I have a hug for good luck?
You'll be fine.
And giving Lori possession of the house
Ready?
and custody of the children.
As ready as I'm ever going to be, I guess.
Lori hasn't seen her husband since she left the home 3 weeks ago.
And that makes it all the more scarier. I'm looking around for his truck and I don't see it. He was my warden. I was his prisoner.
Good morning.
Morning.
Today I cut the ball and chain, and I will be no man's prisoner.
Tell me about your mother and father.
My dad would take my mom's face and smash it into the cabinet doors and knock her around, and she was pregnant.
Is it ironic that you grew up in a house like that and it's happening to you, do you think? A coincidence?
I don't think it's coincidence, but it is ironic.
Okay, what he's willing to do is agree to everything.
I just want it all over with.
I know. If we agree, you won't have to testify.
God, okay, Lord. I just want this all over with. I want to be home with my kids.
You will be. You will be home with them tonight. Lori's attorney just told her that her husband is willing to agree to everything, to sign the papers that state that he was abusive to her. He's willing to give her the custody and the child support that she's requesting, possession of the house, and to stay away from her. The only glitch is that he has requested marital counseling, and we're not sure that that's a real good idea at this point because Lori's convinced that she wants to go through with the divorce.
Did you love him?
I still love him.
After all you've been through, you still love him?
You're not a machine. You can't shut your feelings off.
The parties have entered into an agreement whereby the restraining orders will remain in effect for 1 year.
When you were in the courtroom this morning and you saw David sitting on the other side of the defense table, what thoughts were going through your mind?
The husband will also pay $100 a week or $50 per child per week.
I was thinking, look what I've done to this man.
House payments, property tax, insurance, car payments.
I've taken everything from him.
The wife is awarded exclusive possession of the couple's residence.
He was scared. He was hurt. He was upset.
But it doesn't equate with 10 years of being battered.
I know.
Court finds the agreement fair to both of you and therefore it is approved.
I understand that, and people have been trying to talk to me about that.
And I want to thank you for your cooperation. Good luck to both of you. Court's adjourned.
Less than 24 hours after a civil court ordered Lori's husband to stay away from her and the children, he showed up at their home.
And he told me, he says, well, if you don't talk to those kids and ask them if I can come home and stay, he says, I will kill myself. And that's when I told him, I said, whatever it takes. And I went in and called the cops.
The next day, Lori attends a support group at the shelter.
He told me that he would take my house and those kids, and I would have nothing. He would put me out in the street. I knew he wasn't going to touch me, but it was the way I was feeling. After seeing him for 3 weeks, I wasn't feeling unsafe from him. I was feeling unsafe from my own feelings.
You'll be okay.
Why do I feel sorry for him?
Probably because you love him and because he's trying to make you feel sorry for him.
You've said you're going to file for divorce. Will you really do it?
That's hard to say. That's going to take some time. I mean, when I said it, I meant it.
But one thing is certain.
What's that?
You'll have to be the one
To make that
the
decision. As my son so bluntly put it, Mom, you're the only one that can help us.
I was like a time bomb. I just exploded. The arguing, the fighting, it took its toll on me in every way.
Brenda Dadisman is in prison, serving 9 to 16 years for what she did to her husband.
About 5 in the afternoon on July 15th, 1987, you took out a gun and you shot your then husband 4 times. You're appealing for clemency. You want to get out of prison because, on what grounds?
Battered women syndrome.
You were battered?
For 10 years. For almost 10 years.
But there's at least one person in Ohio who will be arguing against clemency for Brenda Dadisman. It's a person who says, at least in this case, the battered woman syndrome is nothing but a sham. That person is Tom Dadisman, the ex-husband who was shot 4 times and lived.
I wasn't the most perfect husband in the world, but I never beat her in my life. Never, ever. And I'll stick to that until the day I die because I don't beat on my women.
They lived in rural Ohio on 32 acres where Tom still spends a lot of time hunting.
Hunting's great. And it's a way to release everything. I'm at peace out here.
They were married for 10 years. They had 2 kids. They disagreed about a lot, but not this. That on that summer evening in 1987, Tom was sitting on the couch, listening to music, minding his own business, as he puts it.
And I sit there and I took a drink of beer like that and boom, boom, boom. The shot started going off, and I didn't feel him hit me. I just heard the loud noise, and I went, it scared me, and I went like that, and I went, oh my God, and I got up like that. I took a step, and she shot me in the back, and I went down on one knee and knocked the table over like this, and I jumped back up, and she shot me again.
What were you thinking as you fired the 4 shots at him?
I don't know. I don't know what was going through my head.
I ran over to this wall. I come over to this wall like this, and I turned around like this, and she's standing there going, click, click, click. And she goes,
click, 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 no more bullets?
Right, no more bullets.
Brenda Dattisman ran and would later say she didn't remember anything. She would claim temporary insanity. Tom, critically wounded, made his way to this road where a neighbor found him and got help.
I was awake the whole time, but I couldn't move my legs. And they kept saying the whole time they had 2 turbo IVs in me to try to keep up with the bleeding. And they just kept saying, he ain't going to make it, he ain't going to make it.
And here we are now, and the woman who shot you says, I was a battered woman, please let me out of prison.
Exactly.
And what do you make of that?
That's just a bald-faced lie.
At the trial, it came out that Brenda was having an affair. Tom says that's what the shooting was all about, not about battered woman syndrome.
As far as I'm concerned, why she shot me is for my money, my house, and everything else. That is the only reason. If she wanted out, all she had to do was leave. And I feel that if they let her out on that, they're accusing me of beating her, which I never did.
Well, how many times were you physically attacked by your then husband during the 10 years of the marriage? More than once?
Yeah.
More than 5 times?
Yeah. A lot. There was a lot of times.
More than 10 times?
Oh, yeah.
This is her plea for clemency to the state of Ohio.
Okay.
These are her words. He said, before going out the door, you better get my car in the shop today. If not, someone is going to get hit when I come home, meaning me. And then she says, I was afraid that if I didn't get out of the marriage soon, what does she say?
That I would be killed.
That's what she said.
That's a lie. That's a lie.
There was verbal abuse. There was
Yeah.
shoving. Was there ever what we call beating? I mean, you know.
Not to where he'd actually take his fist and beat me, no. There was many times when he'd draw his fist and put it in my face to where he was going to hit, to where he was going to hit me, but he wouldn't. I mean, it's like he held back and he'd just, shove, and he'd take off and he'd walk away. But he never did take his fist and actually beat me up.
If I had been the one to shoot her, okay?
Right.
Well, they'd hang me, see, because I would be a raving, raging man, okay? And it seems like a woman does something like that, they always come back with something like they've been beaten, they've been battered.
For you to be a battered wife, it does not necessarily mean that you have to actually be beat on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's verbal abuse, there's emotional abuse, the physical attacks. That is all abuse, and
you consider yourself battered?
that follows under battered, yes.
Well, what do you make of the battered woman syndrome argument?
Well, some women that are beaten, or really beaten and everything, I don't see anything wrong with it.
As a defense?
Right. But for women to say they're battered and claim they're battered that have never been battered, that's just not right. If they don't see through this, I'll tell you, there's going to be an awful lot of guilty people set free.
Friends of his has made statements to my family. I should have shot him years ago.
And what does she want if she's granted clemency, if she gets out soon?
To get my son and my daughter. I want to put them in a happy environment. I got 3 years to make up to them, and I want to be with them.
But that may be easier said than done, whether they've been subtly, even unconsciously pressured by their father, or whether they truly believe what they say. The children's sympathies are not with their mother in prison.
Well, that was kind of mean. His dad didn't deserve it. He never did nothing to her. Stuff. He never hit her or anything. He was always nice to her and everything. And he didn't. I don't think he didn't deserve to get shot.
You don't think she should be out?
No, she should serve her time for what she did to Dad.
It's bad enough knowing that I shot him. I don't think I could have handled killing him.
If that car hadn't come by and your neighbor hadn't come home to help you,
I'd have died. No doubt. No doubt.
I loved him. I know it sounds funny, but I did.
The sports car I want is a Nissan. No, the one with super Hezakya steering. No, the other one with super Hezakya steering. Yeah, the 240. And I tested it someplace curvy. No, I mean curvy. No, I mean really curvy. Then I'd listen to some music.
Having my baby.
No, I mean real music. Yes!
Hey, his boots come a long way for one day.
without a hitch.
That's not what I hear.
What?
At the airport, someone swiped your wallet.
Oh, right.
What about your client dinner tonight? You know, you're sitting on the biggest order of the year.
Is Mr. Moore here?
I'm Chris Moore.
I've got you a replacement card in cash from American Express.
Thanks a lot.
How did you do that?
Only one card gives you the privileges of membership, the American Express card. Don't leave home without it.
If you sometimes feel like an underdog in business, here's a whole new way to compete. Make one phone call to Sprint and a telecommunications specialist will custom design a small business package just for you. It'll have all the cutting-edge technology that only big business used to be able to afford.
10,000 by the 30th. We're in business.
So you can get to be one of those big, rich companies that everybody resents.
Next, a surprise reunion puts Jake's family in jeopardy.
I'm not a bad guy. I'm your father.
Can Jake protect them from his father's mistake? Jake and the Fat Man. On Guns of Paradise, Ethan's friend is sworn to revenge.
You killed my father and my uncle.
Next, on Dallas, JR's son just slept his way to the top.
I'm half Ewing, and I'm half owner.
Then, on Sons and Daughters, how do you handle your son's first time?
I order you not to have sex.
Especially with an older woman. The triple feature, Friday.
Thinking of getting high? You better know what you're jumping into.
Linda Logan visits her husband Gary's grave once a week, every week. He died a year ago.
I think after this next coming year, I think things will change. And the hardest part will be over.
How old were you when you got married?
16.
What kind of a guy was he?
He was just fun to be with.
Fun at first, but then...
One minute, he'd be the nice guy. The next minute, he'd just blow up.
Over the course of 16 years, Gary and Linda had 6 children. And over those same 16 years, he regularly beat his wife.
I went into the hospital after one of his beatings.
She was in the hospital for 6 days.
One time he had a cigarette and he threatened to burn my eyes out,
This was all in front of the kids?
Mm-hmm.
I screamed at him. I said, "Quit it now." And he grabbed me by the throat and he shoved me against the stairway door.
Billy Joe is 14.
Were you afraid that your father would kill you or kill your brothers or kill your mother eventually?
At times I was so afraid, and it's like I'd have to put pillows over my head just so I wouldn't have to hear it.
On a November night in 1989, it all came to an end.
He kicked a table over, and Billy Joe said, "How would you like your lunch money taken away from you for breaking up stuff. And that's when he went after her. She went to her bedroom and shut the door, and he kicked it in and jumped on the bed. And he started swinging at her in it. And I hollered at him to leave her alone, and he wouldn't do it. And I hollered, and he still wouldn't. I walked out, and I got the gun.
She stood 10 feet to 7 feet away from him, held her hand out, pulled the trigger. The gun did not go off. She turned around, looked at her 2 kids, took the safe off, turned around again.
And I said, Gary, leave her alone. Don't do it. And he wouldn't listen. He just kept it up. And then I fired the gun.
She never told him she had a gun. She didn't say, Gary, stop or I'll shoot. The kids in the room didn't say it. Almost an execution-style shooting.
That's what the prosecutor, Dan Gershutz, told the jury in Linda Logan's trial for murder. But last May, after deliberating for less than 2 hours, the jury acquitted Linda Logan. Her attorney, Bill Kluge, used the battered woman syndrome defense.
These women, these battered women who kill, don't do so because they hate their husbands for the most part. They do so because that's the only alternative for them at that time.
How do you explain to yourself, forget the legality of it, the fact that she just didn't leave?
She had no resources, and I can't stress that enough. That's a common ground in battered woman cases. They have nowhere to go. If she had to leave, she would have left without her children.
Linda did try to leave Gary. She divorced him, but Gary never left.
Why didn't you tell him that you were divorced? This was not his home anymore, that he had to stay away.
He said as long as his kids was there, that was his home too.
Gary and Linda eventually remarried.
He had told me everything was going to change, you know. We went and we talked to the preacher.
And you believed him?
Do you think there was anything your mother could have done to stop what happened?
Because if we would have took off, he would have come after us. I know he would have.
Do you understand that?
No.
That your mother couldn't leave?
In a way, because she really loved him, I guess. No. But, and she always told us when we had asked her is because she wanted Gary and Lee to grow up with a father.
But the 6 children are growing up without a father and with the painful legacy of abuse. Gary Jr. is now 8.
If you had to describe one thing about this family, how would you describe this family?
Mean.
Mean? What do you mean, mean?
Well, because we're mean to each other.
A lot of people worry about the fact that children who grow up in a household where there's been a lot of violence then become violent, and they do that to their children.
That's what my grandma and I was talking about one day. She said that a couple of the boys seem like they'll be just like Dad.
How are you mean to each other?
I don't know. We just get too rough and we get real mad at each other.
Do you love each other?
Yeah. When I was little, I always dreamed of being something. But now that I look at it, there's no way I can do it until we got our family put back together.
A family without a dad.
Yeah, a family without a dad.
Who do you blame for what's happened?
Both of us. I blame him for physical abuse, the things I've went through.
And what part of the blame do you share?
Of pulling that trigger. Because I took something away from the kids.
And in the grave, that man is still haunting her, almost as much as he did when he was alive.
With one very important exception. She can no longer be beaten by him. And maybe it can help her get out of the cycle.
I just keep saying to myself, I've got to go on. I can't think of the past.
Nissan started a few years ago with cold rolled steel and a hot idea to build the best. First came the twin turbo Z, and it was judged the best. Then the Maxima, and it was called the best as well. Now come the new Nissan Sentras, and they're called the best. In fact, in the last 2 years, Nissan's new lineup has won more major awards than anyone, 17 in all. Nissan. We started out making cars. We ended up making history.
3 hours, 9 minutes. May I ask what you're doing? Timing tiny time pills. Excuse me? Well, this morning when I woke up, I talked like this and like that, so I took a Contact. So? Well, Contact has 600 tiny time pills that last 12 hours, up to 3 times longer than ordinary cold medicine. There's a whole day's work in every Contact. 8 hours and 30 seconds.
Look, if you're going to time the tiny time pills all day, when are you going to do the work?
Right. You time it.
There's a whole day's work in every Contact.
Who shot their husband or boyfriend?
48 Hours will continue. Shrewd bank robbers lure a rookie cop to the brink of death.
I was pinned down with 2 armed criminals trying to shoot me.
An all-new Top Cops on a special night in time tonight. Tomorrow, the war in the Gulf continues. After 3 weeks of Allied air attacks, are Iraqi ground troops still relatively intact? What will it take for our forces to win this war? The latest developments from the front lines and reaction from around the world tomorrow on a special edition of the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather.
This is CBS. These days, you can buy a low-priced cellular phone almost anywhere. But down the road, will they be there when you need support like warranty service, routine maintenance, or answers on cellular service? 9X will. 9X Cellular Centers will help you at every turn, even if you didn't buy from us. Don't go it alone. Go with the experts. For mobile communications, the answer is 9X.
Did you ever notice that most truck sales seem like a really big deal? Until you get up close. But Isuzu looks great from any angle. Like now during Isuzu's really big sale. You could actually save up to $2,000 on a versatile Trooper. Or up to $1,500 on one of these rugged pickups. Thanks to factory-to-dealer incentives. So come in now for some really big savings.
You could save up to $2,000 during Isuzu's really big sale.
I told you we were serious.
Flying with America's top guns.
The story at 11.
In 20 years of police work, I've never had a live victim this badly beaten.
He was saying, bitch, I'll kill you, bitch, I'll kill you.
He beat her, and he beat her, and he beat her to the point that all she can say is it seemed like forever.
You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
This is the woman who survived that beating. We'll call her Mary. She asked us not to use her real name or to show you her face or even to let you hear her real voice.
Who is the defendant to you?
My ex-boyfriend.
Her ex-boyfriend is Jim Brown, this man who is on trial in this South Florida courtroom for attempted murder. That's how badly Mary was beaten.
Do you recognize these?
That's Jim.
What's on his feet?
Blood.
Mary's blood. Yet, if she had her way, she would not be in this courtroom. In fact, she tried to have the charge dropped.
She didn't want to come to court. This was not easy for her.
Maggie Rosenbaum prosecutes cases like Mary's.
The biggest problem in prosecuting these cases is victim reluctance.
Even though the woman's been beaten?
Right.
You still have a tough time getting her to come into court and testifying against the guy who beat her?
Almost all the time. Look through these photographs, please.
Do I have to?
I'm sorry, but you do. Do you know how the blood got on these photographs?
From me.
Why is she here?
I suppose it's a combination of things. I'd like to think that she was convinced that it was the right thing to do. She was also under subpoena. We gave her a personal service subpoena.
You had to legally force her to come here and testify against the man who who beat her senseless.
Who beat her into unconsciousness. Please look through these photographs and tell me if you recognize any of them.
I don't want to look at these pictures. Please. I can't. I can't go through that.
Most battered women don't want to testify in the court because they don't think it's going to do any good. They're scared. They're afraid he's going to hurt them worse. And they also think that even if the court finds him guilty, it's not going to do anything. It's not going to stop the violence.
Lenore Walker is a psychologist who was the first to identify battered woman syndrome and the first to introduce the concept in a courtroom to help juries understand why some battered women kill.
When a battered woman kills, she doesn't say, I've had it and you're dead. She says, I've had it, you can't beat me anymore. I'm going to stop you.
How many people in the room, by raising your hand, were battered women? Everybody. These women have gone through the legal system too, but not as witnesses like Mary, who shot their husband or boyfriend. They went through the system as defendants. How many of you killed the man who beat you? They're among the more than 100 inmates at the prison in Marysville, Ohio, who are trying to get out. Shot him dead.
It was either me or him.
They're seeking clemency, claiming battered woman syndrome.
He told me I'd never make it down the driveway without having a 357 in the back of my head.
You thought that if you left him, he would kill you?
Yes, or go after anyone in my family to find me. Yes.
But the battered woman syndrome defense raises some questions. Does a beating really deserve a bullet, especially if the woman is not in clear, imminent danger? You shot him.
I shot
2 days after the beating?
Yeah.
Every battered woman doesn't kill and shouldn't have the right to kill.
Well, who should? Which ones should be allowed
Somebody who reasonably perceives that her life is in danger.
Even if the man is sound asleep at the time and the last beating took place a week and a half ago. If she perceives she's in danger.
Well, it has to be a reasonable perception for a battered woman. It's very unusual that a woman would just wake up one morning and say, today's the day.
Well, how does it happen?
It generally happens because the harassment, the psychological abuse continues even if the last physical incident might have been a week ago.
Did he die?
Yes.
And if a battered woman can murder and go free, does that amount to a license to kill?
If she's in danger, then she has the right to defend herself. And if that means killing him, I think that's a tragedy. But I'd rather that that's what happened than her be dead.
It doesn't have to get to the point of him killing or her killing. If we take the steps at this point.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, have you reached a verdict?
Yes, Your Honor.
So it doesn't have to end where the woman says, I've been beaten once too many times. I fear for my life.
The defendant is guilty of attempted second-degree murder.
If she cooperates with us, it doesn't have to get to that point.
So say we all, Aston Richards.
Jim Brown will be sentenced tomorrow. He could spend the next 30 years in prison.
You've heard me read the verdict. If this is the verdict...
A quick reminder, Lubriderm lotion restores lost moisture to heal your dry skin and protect it. Remember, the one created for dermatologists is the one that heals and protects. Lubriderm. See you later, alligator.
Ocean spray, cranberry cool, cranberry crisp. Ocean spray, most refreshing.
The crisp taste of cranberry. Now, wouldn't that be a refreshing change?
Cranberry cool, cranberry crisp. Ocean spray, most refreshing. I can't believe it.
Ocean Spray cranberry drinks. They're music to your mouth.
Look at me. Enjoying an apple. Thanks to Super Polygrip.
Super Polygrip forms a seal that holds so tight, many denture wearers can enjoy more of their favorite foods.
Even apples.
Super Polygrip.
Refreshing mint. No wonder Polident has a minty mouthwash ingredient in every tablet. Other cleansers may get dentures clean, but Polident gets the minty fresh clean. Super strength, super minty, Polydent.
So how many cars does Mercedes test crash every year?
Oh, I say about 100. You can never learn enough. Ever since we had it patented, we have been improving this concept of the energy-absorbing car body.
But other companies use the concept.
We have never enforced the patent.
So Mercedes gave away a basic safety advance for free?
There are some things in life that are too important not to share.
Mac must decide between the laws of humanity
I'm not going to let his father beat him up again.
and the law of the land.
I just can't walk away.
On Knots Landing, Thursday.
Need some calm in your life? Then don't tune into these guys. PJ Carlissimo, Billy Tubbs, Jim Boeheim, Digger Phelps, a doubleheader anxiety attack Saturday.
Saturday, Tia takes a trip. Buck to the future.
I'm only 17.
Me too.
80-something and still as sharp as ever.
The Buck stops here Saturday.
Aaron.
After years of abuse, Bonnie filed battery charges against her ex-husband.
Come here, please. He's going to kill me for this. I know he is. Not unless you come tell me. I know how much anger that man has in him. I know how much hate he has in him.
He's going to kill you because he's in prison?
Mm-hmm.
Now she's been notified by the Indiana Department of Corrections that he's about to be released.
Did you also get a telephone call from the prosecutor's office?
Yes.
What was said?
They wanted to know if I had a gun. I told them no, I didn't have a gun. And they said, can you relocate? Do I have a choice?
Bonnie is hiding with her 11-year-old son in another city, hoping her ex-husband won't find them.
It's not fair that they tell me that I should go. The prosecutor's office people read the files and call me up and tell me, my God, I got chills down my spine. This scares me to death. I'm scared for you. So help me.
The fact that Bonnie was even notified of her ex-husband's release is because of changes in the system that occurred after the 1989 murder of another Indiana woman, Lisa Bianco.
When you heard about what happened to Lisa, what thoughts went through your mind?
I'm next.
Oh, Lisa was a fantastic person. She was bright, she was bubbly, she had the...
Mickey Chilcote runs the Elkhart Battered Women's Shelter in Indiana, where Lisa Bianco worked.
She had been a resident in a shelter and then came to work here to help other women.
He told me that he was going to beat the fuck out of me, that he was going to take my kids from me to where I would never see them again.
This is what happened to Lisa Bianco 6 months after she divorced her husband, Alan Matheny.
I bartered for my life yesterday and told him that I would not prosecute. I'm afraid that if he does get a hold of me again, I'm not going to be able to talk him out of it. Okay, let me ask you this.
But officials convinced her she should prosecute.
If I don't do something, it's just going to happen again. Exactly.
What happened was much worse.
I'm in prison right now for killing my ex-wife, Lisa Bianco.
In March 1989, while serving his sentence for the battery charges Lisa filed, Alan Matheny was issued a temporary furlough.
I did beat her on March 4th, 1989.
That was when you killed her?
That's when I killed her.
Matheny was given the death penalty.
She thought she had gotten out of the cycle. She had divorced a man who beat her. She had gone through the judicial system.
Something failed.
Something failed.
The stronger Lisa was, the more she did that the system told her to do, the worse the violence escalated.
Lisa Bianco's mother, Millie, says the system failed from the very first time Lisa was abused.
Was she afraid for her life?
Oh, of course she was. I hid out with Lisa in off-the-road motels. We hid her away an entire summer in a fishing cottage out of town. And it would be times like this when I would say, my God, what has the system come to? What have we done that we need to be the fugitives?
According to Millie Bianco, Lisa's earlier attempts to press charges brought only a death threat from Alan.
He called me and he said, hey, You know, I'll get less time if I come up there and kill her than if she keeps piling these charges on me.
We became aware that Alan Matheny was being considered for a pass.
South Bend prosecutor Michael Barnes.
We in turn then asked our adult probation department to call the institution, and they were assured that both this office and Ms. Bianco would be notified before he was given any kind of pass or furlough. That did not happen because of a human error at the Indiana Department of Corrections.
A human error that cost Lisa Bianco her life.
I spoke with my attorneys the night before I left on the 8-hour pass, and Michael Barnes and Lisa Bianco was trying to take my good time away from me, which is time you accumulate in prison. They were trying to keep me in prison for a couple more years.
Okay, so you were released on an 8-hour pass.
8-hour pass.
What did you do? You went to Lisa's home, right?
I went to Lisa's home. I had no intentions of killing her when I went into the house.
But you did pick up a shotgun before you went there, didn't you?
I took a shotgun, but I took it unloaded, and then I went to her home.
The littlest one, Amber, was upstairs.
I got out of the car and went in the back door,
and she heard glass breaking, and she knew it was her dad. Lisa had just gotten out of the tub. Brooke saw him come through the door and saw the gun barrel under his coat and start walking towards Lisa. Lisa screamed for Brooke to go call the police.
She went out the front door. I chased her across the street.
She ran away from that house, across the street, leading him away from the children, which is the advice she usually gave to the residents.
She ran across the street to the neighbor's front door, and that is where Alan caught hold of her, spun her around, took the gun barrel once this way, and then this way, and then about 18 more times this way.
And I understand there was no evidence of brains when the police arrived. And he just literally smashed her head.
When I arrived, the ambulance was in the middle of the street. I said, "I'm Lisa's mother, and I want to see her." And he said, "Well, ma'am, he split her head wide open." And I remember a scream that started from the center of the earth and went up to God, and my knees went out from under me, and then someone was dragging me across the street and saying, "The girls need you."
Any regrets?
No, I don't have any.
What was he saying to you? He told me he was doing it because he loved me.
The way domestic violence is handled in this country, it is not taken seriously. So many times they try to make the woman responsible. Why doesn't she just leave? That's why they don't leave. They get killed.
I don't want to be part of the media, another tragedy like Lisa was, just to wake more people up, because they say that Lisa's death helped so much. It didn't. What did it do? It didn't do nothing for me.
The V8-powered Mercury Cougar XR7. It comes with speed-sensitive steering, anti-lock brakes, and a new high-output V8 that's pure adrenaline, which means the top dog is now a cat. All this and the quality of a Mercury.
When Jordan was born, my mother was thrilled we named him after my dad. But she hasn't seen him yet, and Oregon's 3,000 miles away. I know she doesn't call him as often as she'd like. She's kind of frugal and all, and she has this thing about call and collect. So I'm thinking about this, and one day I'm ordering some stuff from a catalog. I'm dialing this 800 number, and it hits me. If I had an 800 number, my mother could call me anytime, free of charge, too. Then I thought, why can't people have 800 numbers? I guess I wasn't the only one asking that question. They started the service in November. I sent my mother one of the first personal 800 cards MCI printed, along with a note that said, "For cuteness and love, call toll-free now. Ask for Jordan."
Several weeks after our 48 hours, Ohio's Governor Celeste granted clemency to 27 women. Among them, Janet Abbott. She goes before the parole board this Friday for final approval, and she expects to be home with her boys by spring. As for Brenda Dattisman, the governor said she cannot go free. Quickly updating you on the war, U.S. Air Force pilots say they shot down 4 Iraqi jets today as those jets tried to flee to Iran. Also, a Navy Tomcat shot down an Iraqi helicopter on a run along the Saudi border. Earlier today, Jordan's King Hussein blasted the U.S. and the Allies, claiming that they are out to smash Arab culture, claiming it's an unjust war. Said President Bush tonight, that's not true. Mr. Bush added there would be no ceasefire despite the Jordanian king's call for one. Stay with this CBS station and CBS News for continuing war coverage on America Tonight, right after your late local news. I'm Dan Rather. That's 48 hours for this week. Now, here's a look ahead to next week.
We were doing so well.
They thought the good times would never end.
And just get better and better.
I have a bid of $262,000.
But then their American dream turned to dust.
I'm sorry this had to happen.
Has anybody found a job this week?
Hard times.
Will I be one of those homeless people?
It's not someone else's problem anymore.
No way would I ever thought that I'd be standing in an unemployment line.
Going for broke.
It's tough.
Next week.